You filthy thing, get out of here before I call security, a voice sneers. Phones flash, capturing her fall, and the video quickly explodes online with Wanash Napa fiasco. Humiliated in her domain, she faces racial slurs, public scorn, and a corporate conspiracy to steal her empire. But as a loyal ally drapes a jacket over her, a cryptic note, check the contracts, ignites a fierce resolve. Rising from the mud, she swears to dismantle the lies that threaten her legacy. Will she reclaim her birthright or be crushed by betrayal? Stay tuned to find out. Subscribe for more gripping stories like this and comment. Where are you watching from? What secrets lie hidden in Napa's vines? The truth is just beginning to unfold. The Napa Valley sun dipped low, painting the Ellis vineyard in hues of molten gold. Rows of grapevines stretched endlessly, their leaves shimmering under the last rays of daylight, as if whispering secrets of the earth. The air carried a sweet tang of ripening fruit, mingling with the faint buzz of anticipation from the outdoor pavilion at the vineyard's heart. Here, beneath a canopy of twinkling chandeliers, America's elite gathered, tech tycoons in tailored suits, celebrities draped in silk, wine critics clutching leather-bound notebooks. Their laughter, sharp and crystalline, danced over the soft strains of a jazz quartet, weaving a tapestry of privilege and power. Crystal glasses clinked, each sip of ruby-red wine a testament to the vineyard's prestige. This was no mere auction. It was a stage where fortunes were flaunted, reputations forged, and dreams bottled for the highest bidder. At the edge of the pavilion, a woman stood alone, her silhouette framed against the fading light. Maya Ellis, 32, was a vision of understated elegance. A simple black dress hugged her frame, its clean lines speaking of quiet authority. Her short braids were swept back, revealing eyes that burned with focus, scanning the crowd like a general surveying a battlefield. A discreet earpiece nestled against her ear, her fingers brushing it as she murmured instructions to her team. Check the reserve stock. Table 3's running low. Her voice was steady, a low melody that carried the weight of command. Once a tech CEO who'd sold her startup for millions, Maya had traded boardrooms for this vineyard, pouring her soul into its soil. The Ellis vineyard wasn't just a business. It was her heart, her defiance, her proof that she could rise where others expected her to fall. Yet beneath her poised exterior, a current of unease rippled. The crowd, mostly white, moved with an effortless arrogance, their glances occasionally lingering on her, not with respect, but with a subtle, probing curiosity. A man in a pinstripe suit whispered to his companion, his words lost in the jazz but his smirk unmistakable. "She's the owner," he seemed to say, brows raised in disbelief. Maya caught the look, her jaw tightening imperceptibly. She'd faced such skepticism before, countless times. In Silicon Valley, investors had scoffed at her pitches, their eyes saying what their lips wouldn't. A black woman? In tech? Here, in Napa's gilded world, the same silent judgments cloaked themselves in polite smiles. She was an outsider in their eyes, her success an anomaly they couldn't quite reconcile. Maya's fingers grazed the earpiece again, grounding herself in the rhythm of the auction. A rare vintage from her vineyard, a 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon, aged to perfection, was up for bid. The auctioneer's voice boomed smooth as velvet. "50,000 to start, ladies and gentlemen. Do I hear 60? Hands shot up, paddle numbers flashing like blades in a duel. Maya's chest swelled with pride. Each bid was a nod to her labor, her vision. She'd built this place from nothing, turning a neglected plot into a name whispered with reverence. But pride came with a price. Tonight's success wasn't just about wine. It was about cementing her place in a world quick to dismiss her. She couldn't afford a single misstep. As the bids climbed, 80,000, 90,000, a memory clawed its way to the surface, unbidden and merciless. Maya's breath caught, her gaze drifting to the horizon where the vineyard met the sky. She was 16 again, lost in a city's underbelly, the air thick with menace. Shadows loomed, men with cruel eyes, their hands gripping her arms as they dragged her toward a van. Her screams had been swallowed by the night, her pleas ignored. She'd been betrayed, sold like chattel by someone she'd trusted. The world had turned cold, indifferent, until Marcus, her brother, burst through the darkness. 20 years old, wiry but fearless, he'd fought like a man possessed, his fists a blur against her captors. "Run, Maya!" he'd roared, his voice cracking with desperation. She'd stumbled, tears blinding her, as his shouts turned to silence. She'd escaped, but Marcus hadn't. His blood stained the pavement, his sacrifice the only reason she stood here now. The memory tightened her throat, a fist around her heart. She blinked hard, forcing herself back to the pavilion. The auctioneer's gavel struck. Sold for 120,000. Applause rippled through the crowd, but Maya barely heard it. Marcus's voice echoed in her mind, a haunting refrain. Run, Maya. She hadn't just run. She'd fought, clawed her way up. After his death, the police had shrugged. A black man's life, they'd implied, wasn't worth investigating. Gang trouble, they'd called it, their pens idle, their eyes averted. The injustice had seared her, fueling her drive. She'd taught herself to code in a community college basement, built a tech empire, and now this vineyard. Each triumph was a defiance of those who tried to erase her. Yet the weight of that past lingered, heavier tonight. Maya scanned the pavilion again, her gaze sharper now. A woman in a sequined gown leaned toward her partner, her whisper carrying just far enough. Bold choice, letting her run a place like this. The words were a needle, precise and venomous. Maya's fingers curled into her palm, nails biting skin. She knew these slights, microscopic but deliberate, each one a reminder that her presence here was a disruption. The crowd saw her dress, her poise, but not her scars. They didn't see the nights she'd coded until dawn, the investors who'd slammed doors in her face, the brother who'd died so she could live. They saw only what they wanted, a black woman who didn't belong. She adjusted her earpiece, her voice calm as she spoke to her team. Table 5, swap the Merlot for the 19 blend. Routine kept her anchored, a shield against the undercurrent of disdain. This auction was her proving ground. Every bottle sold, every bid raised, was a brick in the legacy she was building, not just for herself, but for Marcus, for every dream dismissed as impossible. Failure wasn't an option. She had to make this night flawless, to show these people that she wasn't just a name on a deed, but a force they couldn't ignore. The jazz quartet shifted to a slower tune, its notes curling like smoke through the air. Maya stepped forward, her heels clicking softly on the pavilion's polished floor. She moved with purpose, nodding to a server, checking the auction's progress. The crowd parted slightly, some eyes following her with grudging curiosity, others with veiled contempt. She felt their scrutiny like a physical weight, each glance a challenge. Prove you belong. And she would. The vineyard was her kingdom, its vines an extension of her will. Tonight, she'd make them see her, not as an interloper, but as the architect of this empire. But as she paused, her hand still on the earpiece, a shadow flickered at the edge of her awareness. The jazz seemed to falter, the crowd's laughter sharpening into something else. Maya's pulse quickened, a premonition she couldn't name. Marcus's voice whispered again, faint but urgent. Run, Maya. She shook it off, her gaze sweeping the pavilion. The auction was climbing, the bids soaring, her team seamless. Everything was perfect, yet the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. She didn't know it then, but beneath the golden glow of her vineyard, a betrayal was taking root, one that would test her strength, her heart, and the legacy she'd fought so hard to build. The pavilion at Ellis Vineyard pulsed with opulence, its chandeliers casting a golden glow over the wine auction's frenetic energy. Napa Valley's night had turned restless, a storm brewing beyond the glass walls, where wind howled and rain lashed in sudden violent bursts. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oak-aged wine and the murmur of privilege. Tech moguls, Hollywood stars, and critics swirled in a dance of wealth, their voices a symphony of arrogance. The jazz quartet's notes wove through the crowd, but the melody felt brittle now, like glass on the verge of shattering. Maya Ellis, 32, stood at the pavilion's heart, her black dress a stark contrast to the glittering chaos. Her earpiece hummed with updates, her fingers steady as she adjusted it, but her eyes, sharp, unyielding, scanned the room for any crack in the evening's perfection. This was her domain, her triumph, and she'd be damned if it faltered. She moved through the crowd, a queen in her castle, nodding to servers, checking bid sheets. The auctioneer's voice soared. 80,000 for the 18 Cabernet. Do I hear 90? And paddles rose like vultures circling a prize. Maya's lips curved faintly. Each bid was a brick in her legacy, proof that a black woman could command this world. But the crowd's gaze felt heavier now, their smiles too tight, their whispers too pointed. A woman in a sapphire gown leaned toward her companion, her voice low but cutting. "She's the owner? I thought she was staff." The words stung, a blade wrapped in velvet, and Maya's stride faltered for a heartbeat. She'd faced this before. Silicon Valley boardrooms, Napa's elite circles, where her presence was a puzzle, her success a provocation. She straightened, her chin lifting. Let them stare. She belonged here. Then a shadow loomed. Vivian Cross 50 glided forward, her white silk dress gleaming like armor, her smile as sharp as a guillotine. A titan in Napa's wine industry, Vivian's wealth was matched only by her ruthlessness. Her blue eyes locked onto Maya, cold and appraising, as if sizing up prey. "Excuse me," Vivian said, her voice dripping with condescension. "The Pinot table's empty. Shouldn't you be handling that?" The words hung in the air, deliberate, venomous. Maya's breath caught, but her face remained a mask of calm. "I'm Maya Ellis," she said, her tone even, "the owner of this vineyard." Vivian's laugh was a whip crack, slicing through the jazz. "Oh, darling, don't play games. Owners don't dress like that." She gestured at Maya's simple gown, her smirk inviting the crowd to join the jest. Laughter rippled, soft at first, then bolder, a chorus of complicity. Maya's pulse thundered, but she held her ground. "I'm the owner," she repeated, her voice steel now, each syllable a challenge. Vivian's eyes narrowed, her smile twisting into something crueler. "Then you should know your place," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. "This is a high-class event, not a charity case." The crowd hushed, sensing blood in the water. A man in a tuxedo snorted, his phone already out, recording. Maya's skin burned, not from shame but from a fury she'd buried since childhood. She opened her mouth to retort, but Vivian snapped her fingers, and two burly security guards, hired by her, not Maya, materialized, their hands clamping onto Maya's arms. "Escort her out," Vivian ordered, her voice ringing with authority. "She's disrupting the guests." The pavilion spun. Maya struggled, her heels scraping the polished floor. "This is my vineyard," she shouted, her voice cracking with outrage. The guards didn't flinch, their grips iron as they dragged her toward a service exit. The crowd parted, some averting their eyes, others watching with morbid fascination. A woman whispered, "She doesn't belong here," her words echoing the unspoken thoughts of many. Phones flashed, capturing every moment. The hashtag #NashShorn Napa fiasco already trending. Rain roared outside, the storm breaking as the guards shoved Maya through the exit into a muddy alley. She stumbled, her dress soaking through, mud splattering her legs. The door slammed shut, muffling the auction's din, leaving only the storm's wrath in her ragged breaths. Maya's knees buckled, but she caught herself, hands bracing against the slick wall. Her earpiece dangled, useless. The team's chatter drowned by rain. Humiliation seared her, hotter than the cold soaking her skin. She'd built this place, every vine, every bottle, yet they'd cast her out like a trespasser. The crowd's laughter echoed in her mind. Vivian's sneer a brand on her soul. She saw Marcus's face, his final shout. "Run, Maya!" And her fists clenched. She wouldn't run this time. She'd fight. But how? The weight of their disdain, their refusal to see her, pressed down like a physical force. She was a black woman in their world, and tonight, that truth felt like a sentence. A figure emerged from the shadows, rain streaking his face. Jamie, 22, a black intern with earnest eyes and a lanky frame, clutched a jacket. "Ms. Ellis," he said, voice trembling, "you don't deserve this." He'd seen it all, Vivian's taunt, the guard's roughness, and had slipped out, defying orders. He draped the jacket over her shoulders, its warmth a small defiance against the storm. I tried to stop them, he said, but they wouldn't listen. Maya met his gaze, her fury softening for a moment. Jamie's mother, he'd once told her, had faced similar slights, passed over, dismissed, invisible. His solidarity was a lifeline, fragile but real. She nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with unshed tears. As she pulled the jacket closer, her fingers brushed something in the pocket, a folded note. She unfolded it, the ink smudging under the rain. Check the auction contracts. Betrayal's close. Her breath hitched. The words were a spark, igniting something fiercer than her shame. Someone knew. Someone saw the truth. But who? And what betrayal? The storm raged, lightning splitting the sky, but Maya's eyes burned with new resolve. She wiped mud from her face, her jaw setting. They'd tried to break her, to erase her from her kingdom. They'd failed. This was her vineyard, her legacy, and she'd reclaim it, no matter the cost. The pavilion's lights glowed in the distance, a mocking beacon of the world that had rejected her. Maya stood taller, rain streaming down her face, the note clutched in her hand. The auction continued without her, bids climbing, glasses clinking, but a shift had begun. The storm wasn't just outside, it was in her, a tempest of rage and purpose. She didn't know who'd slipped her the note or what treachery awaited, but one thing was certain. This night wasn't over. Her fight was just beginning. The storm outside the Ellis Vineyard office roared like a living thing, its thunder shaking the walls as rain hammered the windows. Inside, the air was heavy, charged with the aftershock of betrayal. Maya Ellis, 32, sat at her desk, her soaked dress clinging to her skin, mud streaking her arms like war paint. The pavilion's golden glow felt a world away, its laughter now a mocking echo in her mind. Jamie's jacket hung over her shoulders, its warmth a faint shield against the chill of humiliation. Her hands trembled, not from cold but from a fury that burned hotter with every heartbeat. The note, check the auction contracts. Betrayal's close lay crumpled on the desk, its smudged ink a taunt, a promise. Someone had seen her cast out, had known the truth, and now she clung to that scrap of paper like a lifeline in a sea of rage. Maya's eyes, still sharp despite the night's toll, fixed on the note. Her vineyard, her empire, had been defiled, her name dragged through the mud, literally and figuratively. The crowd's sneers, Vivian's venomous smile, the guards' rough hands, they'd stripped her of dignity in her domain. But she wasn't broken. She'd survived worse. Nights in a trafficker's grip, her brother Marcus's blood on a city street, the police's indifferent shrugs. She'd clawed her way to Silicon Valley's heights, built a tech empire. Then this vineyard, each step a defiance of those who'd tried to erase her. Tonight's humiliation wasn't the end. It was a spark. She straightened, her jaw setting, and pushed wet braids from her face. Whoever wrote that note knew something, and she'd tear the truth from the shadows if she had to. A soft knock broke her reverie. Jamie, 22, stood in the doorway, his lanky frame silhouetted against the storm's flicker. His dark eyes held a quiet fire, his rain-soaked shirt clinging to his shoulders. "Ms. Ellis," he said, voice low but steady, "you don't deserve what they did." He stepped inside, holding a bottle of water, his hesitation betraying the weight of what he'd witnessed. Maya's gaze softened, just for a moment. Jamie, a vineyard intern, had risked his job to follow her into the rain, to offer his jacket, to see her when others hadn't. "My mom," he continued, setting the water down, "she used to get treated like that. Looked over, pushed aside just for being black. I couldn't stay quiet." His words were a bridge connecting their shared wounds, and Maya felt a flicker of gratitude amidst her storm. She nodded, her voice hoarse. "You're braver than most out there, Jamie." She meant it. The pavilion had been a sea of complicity. Guests who'd laughed, staff who'd turned away. But Jamie had acted, his defiance a small light in the dark. He shifted, uneasy, then spoke again. "I saw how they looked at you. Like you didn't belong. It's not right." His words stirred a memory, sharp and unbidden. Maya was 19 again, hunched over a library computer, teaching herself to code after Marcus's death. Investors had later dismissed her startup pitches, their smiles polite, but their eyes saying, "A black girl? In tech?" She'd proven them wrong, but the sting of their doubt lingered, echoed now in Napa's elite sneers. She pushed the memory down, focusing on Jamie. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadier. "But this isn't over." Before she could say more, footsteps echoed in the hall. Jada, 20, a Latina server with fierce eyes and a quick stride, burst in, her apron still tied from the auction. "Ms. Ellis, I wrote the note," she said, breathless, glancing at Jamie for reassurance. Maya's gaze sharpened, her hand closing around the paper. "Talk," she said, her tone a mix of command and curiosity. Jada swallowed, then spilled the truth. She'd overheard Derek, the vineyard's CFO, and Vivian Cross in the kitchen before the auction. "They're planning to bankrupt you," Jada said, her voice trembling with urgency. "Derek forged contracts to make it look like you defaulted on loans. They want to take the vineyard." Maya's blood ran cold. Derek, her trusted CFO, a man she'd hired for his sharp mind, had betrayed her. And Vivian, her rival's cruelty now had a motive deeper than spite. Maya's mind raced, her tech instincts kicking in. She pulled her laptop from the desk, its screen casting a harsh glow on her face. "Show me," she said, her voice steel. Jada hesitated, then described a file she'd seen on Derek's tablet. Password protected, but she'd glimpsed its title. Ellis Acquisition. Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard, her coding skills a weapon honed in Silicon Valley's trenches. She'd hacked tougher systems than Derek's cloud drive, and within minutes, she was in. A folder blinked onto the screen, its contents a gut punch. Forged contracts, falsified debt records, emails between Derek and Vivian. One line seared itself into her mind, Derek's words dripping with disdain. "Who'd believe Ellis owns this place? She's out of her league." The racism wasn't veiled now. It was blatant, a knife twisted in her back. Maya's hands froze, her breath shallow. The betrayal cut deeper than the pavilion's laughter. Derek hadn't just plotted against her. He dismissed her existence, her worth because of her skin. She saw Marcus's face again, his final shout, "Run, Maya," and her resolve hardened. She wouldn't run. She'd fight smarter this time, with the truth as her blade. Jamie and Jada watched her, their silence heavy with shared purpose. "They think they can erase me," Maya said, her voice low, dangerous. "They're wrong." She saved the files, her mind already mapping the next steps. She needed allies, proof, and land to expose this treachery before it consumed her vineyard. Jada spoke again, her voice steadier. "There's more. I heard them say the auction's tied to something bigger. Vivian's not working alone." Maya's eyes narrowed. A bigger scheme? Her thoughts churned, but she pushed them aside. One battle at a time. She needed someone to amplify this truth, someone outside her circle. Her mind flashed to Evan, a journalist she'd met at a Napa event last year. He'd filmed tonight's fiasco. She'd seen his camera in the crowd. If she could get him the evidence, he could help her unravel this. Maya grabbed her phone, her fingers steady despite the storm in her chest. She dialed Evan's number, her voice calm but urgent. "Evan, it's Maya Ellis. I need your help. Something happened tonight, and I have proof it wasn't an accident." She glanced at the laptop, the forged contracts glowing like a beacon. Jamie and Jada stood close, their presence a reminder she wasn't alone. Outside, thunder roared, but inside, a different storm was brewing, one of vengeance, of truth. Maya hung up, her eyes locked on the note. Betrayal was close, but so was her fight. This was her vineyard, her legacy, and she'd burn it all down before letting them take it. The office at Ellis Vineyard hummed with a restless energy, its walls bathed in the cold, flickering glow of computer screens. Outside, Napa Valley's storm had settled into a relentless drizzle, the rain tapping the windows like an impatient conspirator. Inside, Maya Ellis, 32, sat hunched over her laptop, her braids falling loose, her eyes blazing with a focus that could cut steel. The mud from her humiliation still clung to her dress, now dried into a gritty badge of defiance. Jamie's jacket lay draped over a chair, a reminder of the young intern's loyalty. The note, Check the auction contracts. Betrayal's close, sat beside her, its words a spark that had ignited a fire in her chest. She'd hacked Derek's drive, uncovered his forged contracts, but the truth she'd found was only the beginning. Something darker lurked beneath, and Maya was determined to unearth it. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, lines of code scrolling like a battle plan. Once a tech CEO who'd outsmarted Silicon Valley's gatekeepers, Maya wielded her skills like a weapon. The screen flashed with files, emails, spreadsheets, encrypted folders, each a piece of the puzzle Derek and Vivian had crafted to destroy her. Jamie, 22, leaned over her shoulder, his dark eyes narrowing as he pointed to a file labeled Auction Transactions. "That's not normal," he said, his voice low, tinged with the same unease Maya felt. A black intern who'd grown up dodging prejudice, Jamie's instincts were sharp, honed by years of navigating a world that often dismissed him. "Those numbers don't add up," he added, tracing a column of inflated bids. Maya nodded, her jaw tight. The auction wasn't just a stage for her humiliation. It was a front, a machine hiding something sinister. Jada, 20, stood by the window, her Latina features taut with worry. The server who'd risked everything to slip Maya the note, Jada's courage had bound her to this fight. "I heard Derek and Vivian in the kitchen," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "They mentioned cleaning money through the auction. It's not just about taking the vineyard." Maya's breath caught, her mind racing. Money laundering? The scale of the betrayal was staggering, a web spun by Vivian Cross, the white wine mogul whose polished exterior masked a ruthless ambition. Maya clicked deeper into the files, uncovering a trail of offshore accounts linked to Vivian's winery. The auction's proceeds, millions raised from her bottles, were being funneled to a shadowy conglomerate, not her vineyard's coffers. The room felt smaller, the air thick with the weight of discovery. Maya's heart pounded, not just from anger, but from the ghost of her past. She saw Marcus, her brother, his face bloodied in that alley. His sacrifice, the reason she'd survived to build this empire. The police had dismissed his death. Gang trouble, they'd said, their pens idle because he was black. That same dismissal echoed in Derek's email. Its words burned into her mind. "Who'd believe Ellis owns this place? She's out of her league." The racism wasn't just personal, it was systemic, woven into the fabric of this plot. They didn't just want her vineyard, they wanted to erase her, to prove a black woman couldn't hold this ground. Maya's fingers tightened on the mouse, her resolve hardening. They'd underestimated her once. They wouldn't again. A notification pinged on Jada's phone, shattering the silence. She glanced at it, her eyes widening. "Lila's post is blowing up," she said, holding up the screen. Lila, 20, a black influencer with 1 million followers, had taken to social media, her voice cutting through the noise of Napa fiasco. Her post was a firebrand. "Something's off at Ellis Vineyard. Why was the owner thrown out? Who's hiding the truth? Justice for the owner." The comments exploded, some supportive, others vicious, echoing the pavilion's sneers. "She probably scammed her way in," one read, the words a dagger of prejudice. Maya's stomach twisted, but Lila's post was a lifeline, a crack in the wall of silence. The world was watching now, and she'd make sure they saw the truth. But Vivian wasn't idle. Another ping. Jada gasped. A doctored photo had hit the internet, showing Maya slipping a bottle of wine into her bag. The caption venomous. "What else do you expect from certain people?" The lie spread like wildfire, shared by anonymous accounts that reeked of Vivian's influence. Maya's blood boiled, her humiliation now a public spectacle. The photo wasn't just a smear, it was a calculated strike, feeding the narrative that she was a fraud, unworthy of Napa's elite circles. She saw the pavilion again, the crowd's laughter, and Vivian's smirk. Her fingers clenched, nails biting into her palms. They thought they could break her with lies, but they'd forgotten who she was. A woman who'd built empires from nothing, who'd survived the unthinkable. Jamie's voice cut through her rage. "We can fight this," he said, his earnestness grounding her. "You're not alone." He'd grown up in a world that tried to shrink him, his mother's stories of being overlooked mirroring Maya's own. His loyalty was unshakable, a mirror of Marcus's sacrifice. Jada nodded, her fear giving way to defiance. I saw what they did to you, she said. I'm in, whatever it takes. Maya met their gaze, a spark of hope flickering in her chest. They were young, untested, but they saw her, truly saw her, when the world hadn't. She wasn't fighting alone anymore. Maya turned back to the laptop, her tech instincts razor sharp. She cross-referenced the auction files with Vivian's accounts, mapping a network of transactions that screamed illegality. The vineyard wasn't just a target, it was a pawn in a larger game, a front for laundering millions. The realization hit like a thunderclap, but Maya didn't flinch. She'd faced worse odds: traffickers, skeptics, a system that dismissed her brother's life. This was her battlefield now, and she'd play to win. She needed more, though, an ally with reach. Evan, the journalist, was her next move. He'd filmed her humiliation, his lens capturing what the crowd tried to erase. If she could get him these files, he could amplify her truth. She grabbed her phone, her voice steady despite the storm in her heart. Evan, it's Maya. I've got something you need to see. Proof of a setup. Meet me tomorrow. She hung up, her eyes flicking to the screen, where Derek's email glared back. She's out of her league. A cold smile curved her lips. They thought they'd buried her in that muddy alley. They were wrong. The storm outside roared, but a fiercer one burned within her. This was her vineyard, her legacy, and she'd tear down their lies to protect it. The rain had softened to a whisper against the windows of Maya Ellis's Napa Valley home, but inside the air crackled with a storm of its own. The modest living room, with its worn leather couch and framed photos of grape harvests, felt like a fortress under siege. Maya, 32, stood by the fireplace, her black dress from the auction now replaced by a sweatshirt and jeans. But the mud of her humiliation still lingered in her mind. Her braids were pulled into a loose bun, her eyes sharp, haunted, fixed on the laptop open on the coffee table. Its screen glowed with the damning files she'd hacked from Derek's drive. Forged contracts, emails plotting her vineyard's downfall, and the chilling revelation that the auction was a front for Vivian Cross's money laundering scheme. The truth was a blade, but wielding it came at a price, and Maya was beginning to feel its weight. She paced, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor, her thoughts a tangle of rage and strategy. The pavilion's sneers, Vivian's venom, Derek's betrayal. They'd tried to erase her, to prove a black woman couldn't hold this ground. But she'd survived worse. The trafficker's grip, her brother Marcus's sacrifice, the police's cold dismissal of his death because of his skin. She'd built a tech empire, then this vineyard, each triumph a defiance of their doubts. Yet the cost of fighting back was mounting. Her phone buzzed incessantly, notifications piling up. Lila's viral post, Chuckernaka Justice for the Owner, clashing with Vivian's doctored photo of her stealing wine, its caption a racist barb. What else do you expect from certain people? The internet was a battlefield and Maya was its target. A small voice broke her spirit. Mom, why are they so mean? Zoe, 8, stood in the doorway, her dark eyes wide with hurt. Maya's heart clenched. Her daughter, usually a whirlwind of giggles and braids adorned with beads, clutched an iPad, its screen frozen on a comment. That family doesn't belong in Napa. Zoe's lip trembled, her innocence bruised by the venom of strangers. Maya crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling to pull Zoe into her arms. They're scared, baby, she murmured, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. Scared of what we've built, of who we are. Zoe's small hands gripped her mother's sweatshirt. But you're the boss, right? Why'd they kick you out? The question was a knife twisting in Maya's gut. She wanted to shield Zoe, to promise a world where fairness reigned, but lies wouldn't heal this wound. They made a mistake, Maya said, brushing a braid from Zoe's face, and I'm gonna fix it. But Zoe pulled back, her eyes flashing with a fire that mirrored Maya's own. They called us liars, Mom. Everybody's laughing at us. The iPad slipped to the floor, its screen a mosaic of hate. Maya's throat tightened, memories of Marcus flooding back. His shout, "Run, Maya!" as he fought for her life. She'd run then, but she couldn't run from this. Zoe deserved better than a world that judged her before she could speak. Maya stood, her resolve hardening. She'd fight, not just for her vineyard, but for her daughter's future. A knock at the door startled them. Jamie, 22, stepped inside, his lanky frame damp from the drizzle, his dark eyes heavy with concern. The vineyard intern who'd braved the storm to stand by Maya now carried a weight of his own. "Miss Ellis," he said, his voice low, "they're coming for Jada." Maya's blood ran cold. Jada, the 20-year-old Latina server who'd slipped her the note, had been fired by Vivian's team, accused of stealing from the auction. Jamie's phone buzzed, a message from Jada. "They're saying I took cash from the bids. I didn't. Help!" Maya's fists clenched. Vivian wasn't just targeting her, she was crushing anyone who dared align with her. And Jamie wasn't unscathed, suspended from the vineyard for insubordination after trying to stop Maya's ejection. The cost of their loyalty was rising, and Maya felt the burden of their trust. Jamie sat on the couch, his hands clasped, his voice raw. "Growing up, I got stopped by cops for walking home. Wrong skin, wrong place. My mom's gotten passed over at work, same reason. I know what they're doing to you." His words were a mirror, reflecting Maya's battles. In Silicon Valley, investors had smirked, their doubts coded in phrases like, "You don't fit the profile." In Napa, the pavilion's laughter had echoed the same prejudice. Jamie's story, his mother's, Zoe's pain. They were threads in a tapestry of injustice Maya knew too well. "You're not alone," Jamie said, meeting her gaze. "We're in this." Maya nodded, a flicker of warmth piercing her anger. Their shared fight was a strength she hadn't expected, a reminder of Marcus's sacrifice. She grabbed her laptop, pulling up the files again. "We need to protect Jada," she said, her voice steely, "and hit back harder." Her tech skills, honed in late-night coding sessions after Marcus's death, were her arsenal. She drafted an email to a lawyer she'd worked with in her CEO days, outlining Jada's wrongful termination and Jamie's suspension. But defense wasn't enough. She needed to expose Vivian's scheme, the auction's money laundering, Derek's forgeries, before they buried her. Evan, the journalist, was her next move, but she needed more evidence to convince him. Her fingers flew, cross-referencing auction bids with the offshore accounts she'd found. Each click was a step closer to the truth, but also deeper into danger. Zoe climbed onto the couch, her small hand touching Maya's arm. "You're gonna win, right?" she asked, her voice soft but fierce. Maya paused, her daughter's faith a beacon in the dark. "I'm gonna try, baby," she said, her voice thick. She saw Marcus again, his eyes urging her to fight. She'd built this vineyard for Zoe, for the legacy he'd died to give her. Losing wasn't an option. She turned to Jamie. "We're not stopping," she said, her tone a vow. "They think they can scare us. They're wrong." The drizzle outside turned to mist, but Maya's resolve burned brighter. She stood, her gaze drifting to a photo on the mantel. Marcus, smiling, his arm around a teenage Maya. She crossed to it, her fingers brushing the frame. "I won't quit," she whispered, her voice breaking. The graveyard where he lay felt closer than ever, its silence a challenge. She'd fight for him, for Zoe, for Jada and Jamie, for every dream dismissed. The truth was her weapon, but its cost was heavy. Her daughter's pain, her allies' risks, her scars reopened. Yet she was ready. The vineyard was her ground, and she'd hold it, no matter what came next. The streets of Napa Valley glistened under a moonless sky, the wet asphalt reflecting the flicker of streetlights like a trail of broken promises. Rain had dwindled to a faint mist, but the air thrummed with unease, as if the night itself held its breath. Maya Ellis, 32, gripped the steering wheel of her sedan, her knuckles taut, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. Beside her, Evan, 30, a white journalist with a lean frame and a camera bag slung across his shoulder, scanned the road behind them. They just left a clandestine meeting with a whistleblower from Vivian Cross's winery, a nervous accountant who'd slipped them a USB drive loaded with cryptic financial records. The drive burned a hole in Maya's pocket, its secrets a ticking bomb. But now, as their car wound through Napa's quiet lanes, a black SUV loomed in the mirror, its headlights cutting through the mist like a predator's eyes. Maya's pulse quickened, her tech-honed instincts screaming danger. She wasn't new to threats. Her past had taught her to sense them. At 16, she'd escaped traffickers, Her brother Marcus's sacrifice buying her freedom. His blood on that city pavement. The police's cold dismissal, gang trouble, they'd called it, because he was black, had forged her resilience. Now, as a vineyard owner and former tech CEO, she faced a different kind of predator. Vivian Cross, the white wine mogul whose polished cruelty masked a money laundering empire. The USB drive held proof, maybe enough to bury Vivian and Derek, her treacherous CFO, but it also painted a target on Maya's back. She pressed the gas, the sedan lurching forward, but the SUV matched her speed, its presence a silent threat. "They've been tailing us since the diner," Evans said, his voice low, his eyes locked on the side mirror. His journalist's calm cracked, revealing a threat of fear. "This isn't random." Maya nodded, her jaw tight. The whistleblower had warned them. Vivian's conglomerate had eyes everywhere, and they didn't play clean. The auction, where Maya had been humiliated, wasn't just a setup to steal her vineyard. It was a cog in a machine washing millions through Napa's elite circles. Maya's hack into Derek's drive had uncovered the edges of it, but this USB could be the key to the whole truth. She swerved onto a narrower road, vineyards flanking them like silent sentinels. But the SUV stayed close, its headlights relentless. Back at the vineyard, the battle was spreading. Jamie, 22, the black intern who'd stood by Maya in the storm, sat in the office. His laptop opened to a flood of social media notifications. Lila, 20, a black influencer, had ignited a fire with her "Sure Justice for the Owner" post, rallying thousands to question Maya's ejection from her auction. But the tide was turning ugly. Anonymous accounts, likely Vivian's trolls, flooded the internet with lies, their comments laced with venom. "Ellis is a fraud. Napa's no place for her kind." The racism was subtle but sharp, echoing the pavilion's sneers, the whispered doubts about Maya's right to her empire. Jamie's fingers hovered over the keyboard, his past cops stopping him for looking suspicious. His mother passed over for promotions, fueling his anger. He texted Jada, the 20-year-old Latina server, now fired for her loyalty to Maya. "They're hitting harder. We need to push back." Jada, holed up in her small apartment, scrolled through the same hate-filled threads. Her phone buzzed with a new article, its headline a gut punch. "Ellis, American Dream or Delusion?" The piece painted Maya as an imposter, her success a fluke, her vineyard a house of cards. The words weren't just an attack. They were a calculated erasure, implying a black woman couldn't belong in Napa's elite world. Jada's hands shook, her firing framed as theft by Vivian's team, a fresh wound. She'd seen Maya's strength, her fight, and she wasn't about to let these lies win. She forwarded the article to Jamie. "This is them. We can't let Maya fight alone." On the road, Maya's sedan hit a sharp curve, tires squealing. The SUV was closer now, its engine growling like a beast. Evan clutched the dashboard, his voice urgent. "Lose them, Maya!" She didn't answer, her focus razor sharp, her tech instincts guiding her like code through chaos. She'd outsmarted worse investors who'd scoffed at her startup, traffickers who'd thought her weak. She took a sudden turn down a vineyard access road, gravel crunching under the tires, vines blurring past. The SUV hesitated, then followed, its headlights slicing the dark. Maya's mind raced. This wasn't just about her vineyard anymore. The USB drive could expose a network far beyond Vivian, but only if she survived the night. Back at the vineyard, Jamie's screen lit up with a new post from Lila. "The truth's coming. Napa's hiding secrets, and Ranashana's justice for. The owner won't stop." Her words were a rallying cry, but the trolls hit back harder, their comments a barrage of hate. "Go back where you came from, Ellis." Jamie's jaw clenched, his mother's stories echoing, years of being dismissed, her worth questioned for her skin. He typed a response, his fingers fierce. "Maya Ellis built this vineyard. You don't get to erase her." But the article's lies were spreading, picked up by tabloids, threatening to drown Lila's support. Jamie knew they needed more than posts. They needed Maya's plan to succeed. Maya's car skidded onto a paved lane, the SUV still trailing. She spotted a winery gate ahead, its iron bars half open. With a sharp yank, she swerved through the gate, scraping the car's side. The SUV slowed, unable to follow, and Maya exhaled, her heart pounding. We lost them, Evan said, his voice tight with relief. But Maya's eyes stayed on the mirror, her mind on the USB drive. For now, she replied. The danger wasn't gone. It was closing in. She needed to get the drive to safety, to decode its secrets before Vivian's reach found her again. At the vineyard, Jada called Jamie, her voice fierce. They're trying to bury her, but Lila's with us. We need to keep the pressure on. Jamie nodded, his resolve mirroring Maya's. Lila's platform was their weapon, but it was Maya who'd wield the truth. On the road, Maya pulled into a deserted lot, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. She turned to Evan. We get this to your editor. Tomorrow. Evan nodded, his camera bag a silent promise. The mist outside thickened, but Maya's vision was clear. They thought they could scare her, break her with lies and shadows. They were wrong. Marcus's voice echoed, Run, Maya! But she wasn't running. She was fighting, and the truth was her blade. The vineyard office at Ellis Vineyard was a fortress of purpose, its walls bathed in the stark glow of computer screens and the faint hum of determination. Outside, Napa Valley's night lay quiet, the storm's remnants reduced to a soft drizzle that tapped the windows like a coded warning. Inside, Maya Ellis, 32, stood at the center of the room, her braids pulled tight, her eyes burning with a resolve that could ignite the dark. Her sweatshirt and jeans were a far cry from the elegance of her auction night dress. But the fire in her posture spoke louder than any gown. The USB drive from the whistleblower rested on the desk, its secrets, forged contracts, money laundering trails, now a loaded weapon in her hands. She'd escaped a tailing SUV the night before, her heart still racing from the chase, but tonight was about preparation. The Harvest Gala loomed, and with it, her chance to expose Vivian Cross and Derek's betrayal. Maya's fingers flew across her laptop, coding a live stream app with the precision of her Silicon Valley days. Once a tech CEO who defied skeptics to build an empire, she wove lines of code like a warrior sharpening a blade. This app would broadcast her truth to the world, unfiltered, unstoppable. The gala, Napa's glittering pinnacle, would be her stage, not to beg for acceptance, but to shatter the lies that had humiliated her. She saw the pavilion again, Vivian's sneer, the crowd's laughter as guards dragged her into the mud. The memory stung, but it fueled her. She'd survived worse. Traffickers who'd stolen her youth, a system that dismissed her brother Marcus's death because he was black. His final shout, "Run, Maya!" echoed in her mind, a call to fight, not flee. This app was her answer, a digital sword to cut through Vivian's empire. Jamie, 22, the black intern who'd stood by her in the storm, hunched over another laptop, his fingers dancing as he designed the livestream's interface. His earnest eyes flicked between screens, his tech skills honed in community college labs, matching Maya's own. Clean layout, he said, showing her a sleek design, all sharp lines and bold colors. It'll pop on phones. Make sure everyone sees. Maya nodded, a rare smile breaking through. Jamie's loyalty was a lifeline. His battles, cops stopping him for looking wrong, his mother's dreams crushed by prejudice, mirroring her own. Good work, she said, her voice warm but firm. We need this perfect. Jamie's suspension, a punishment for defending her, weighed on her, but his defiance only strengthened their bond. Jada, 20, the Latina server who'd risked everything to slip Maya the note, paced the room, her hands sorting through a stack of printed gala guest lists. Her firing, framed as theft by Vivian's team, had left her shaken, but her eyes blazed with purpose. I've got every name, she said, tapping the papers. Big players, CEOs, critics, sponsors, they'll all be there when we drop the truth. Maya met her gaze, gratitude mingling with guilt. Jada's courage had cost her job, her stability, yet she stood here, unwavering. The three of them, Maya, Jamie, Jada, were a small army, bound by shared wounds and a hunger for justice. They'd been dismissed, erased, but tonight they were forging a reckoning. The room buzzed with tension, the stakes higher than ever. Maya's phone lit up with notifications. Lila's justice for the owner posts were gaining traction, but Vivian's trolls fought back, their comments a venomous tide. Ellis doesn't belong in Napa. The racism was subtle but cutting, echoing the pavilion's whispers, the article that called her success a delusion. Maya's jaw clenched, her mind flashing to her startup days. Investors had smirked, their words veiled but clear. You don't look like a CEO. She'd proven them wrong, building a tech empire from nothing. Now Napa's elite tried the same game, but she was done playing by their rules. The gala would be her battlefield, and she'd rewrite their narrative. A memory surfaced, sharp and unbidden. Maya was 23, standing in a conference room, pitching her startup to a room of white investors. "Who's your front man?" one had asked, assuming she was a placeholder. She'd smiled, her voice steel. "I'm the company." That defiance had carried her through just as it did now. She shook off the memory, focusing on the app. The code was nearly done, its framework tight, ready to stream her evidence. Derek's emails, Vivian's offshore accounts, to millions. But time was a noose tightening around them. The gala was tomorrow, and every second risked exposure. Vivian's reach was long, her conglomerate a shadow that could crush them. Evan, 30, the white journalist who'd filmed Maya's humiliation, slipped into the office, his camera bag slung over his shoulder. His press credentials had secured Maya a speaking slot at the gala, a coup that could amplify her truth. "It's set," he said, his voice low, urgent. "You're on at 9 p.m., prime time. But Vivian's team is sniffing around. They know something's up." Maya's eyes narrowed. The SUV chase had been a warning. Vivian wasn't playing games. Evan's footage, paired with the USB drive, was their ace. But getting it to the gala unscathed was a gamble. "We'll be ready," Maya said, her voice a vow. She handed Evan a copy of the files, her trust in him a calculated risk. The room fell silent, the drizzle outside a soft counterpoint to their resolve. Maya's gaze drifted to a photo on the desk. Marcus, his smile wide, his arm around a teenage Maya. Her throat tightened. He'd died to give her this chance, to let her build something unbreakable. She touched the frame, her voice a whisper. "This is for you." The gala wasn't just about saving her vineyard. It was about honoring Marcus, proving a black woman could stand tall in a world that tried to cut her down. Jamie looked up, his eyes meeting hers. "We've got this, Miss Ellis," he said, his voice steady. Jada nodded, clutching the guest list like a battle plan. They were young, untested, but their belief in her was a fire she'd carry into the fight. Maya turned to her laptop, finalizing the livestream app. The code locked into place, a digital fortress ready to broadcast her truth. She stood, her sweatshirt hiding the warrior beneath, and slipped into an emerald gown hanging on the door, a symbol of the power she'd wield tomorrow. Her fingers brushed the fabric, her heart steady despite the storm of doubt. Vivian thought she'd broken her, that Napa's elite could erase her with lies. They were wrong. The gala would be her reckoning, and she'd walk onto that stage not as a victim, but as a force they'd never forget. The Harvest Gala at Napa Valley's grandest hotel shimmered like a jewel in the night, its ballroom ablaze with crystal chandeliers and the clink of champagne flutes. The air buzzed with the chatter of America's elite, wine moguls, tech barons, and celebrities draped in silk and diamonds. Velvet curtains framed a stage where spotlights danced, and the scent of roses mingled with the heady aroma of rare vintages. But beneath the opulence, a current of tension crackled, as if the room sensed a storm about to break. Maya Ellis, 32, stood at the ballroom's edge, her emerald gown catching the light like a blade. Her braids were swept into an elegant updo, her eyes sharp, unyielding, scanning the crowd. No longer the woman dragged through mud, she was a warrior, her heart a furnace of purpose. Tonight she'd reclaim her vineyard, her dignity, and the legacy her brother Marcus had died for. The gala was Napa's crown jewel, a stage where power was flaunted and reputations forged. Vivian Cross, 50, the white wine titan whose cruelty had orchestrated Maya's humiliation, held court near the stage, her white gown gleaming like a predator's smile. Her laughter rang out, calculated and cold, as she accepted an award for industry excellence. The crowd applauded, their adoration a shield for her secrets, forged contracts, money laundering schemes, a plot to steal Maya's vineyard. Derek, 30, her CFO and betrayer, hovered nearby, his sharp suit hiding a nervous glance toward the shadows. Maya's gaze locked on them, her pulse steady but fierce. They thought they'd buried her in that muddy alley, erased her with lies. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jamie, 22, the black intern who'd stood by Maya through the storm, slipped through the crowd, his lanky frame in a borrowed tuxedo. His earnest eyes met hers, a silent nod of solidarity. "You got this, Ms. Ellis," he whispered, handing her a microphone clipped to a discreet earpiece. His tech skills had polished the livestream app, now ready to broadcast Maya's truth to millions. Lila, 20, a black influencer with 1 million followers, stood by a velvet rope, her phone raised, live streaming to her audience. "Napa's about to get real," she teased, her voice a spark igniting the digital world. Justice for the Napa owner trended, a wildfire of support clashing with Vivian's trolls. Maya's chest tightened, gratitude mingling with resolve. These young allies, forged in shared battles, were her army. Evan, 30, the white journalist who'd filmed her humiliation, lingered near the stage, his press credentials securing Maya's slot. His camera bag held the USB drive, proof of Vivian's crimes now synced with Maya's app. The files, Derek's emails, offshore accounts, forged debts, were a guillotine waiting to fall. But the risk was immense. Vivian's conglomerate had eyes everywhere. Their SUV chase a warning still fresh in Maya's mind. She adjusted her earpiece, Jamie's voice crackling through. "App's live. You're good to go." She nodded, her emerald gown shimmering as she stepped toward the stage, the crowd parting like a sea before a storm. Whispers followed, some curious, others laced with disdain. "Isn't that the woman from the auction?" The racism was subtle, a shadow in their eyes echoing the pavilion's sneers. Maya ascended the stage, the spotlight hot on her skin, the room falling silent. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steel as she began. "My name is Maya Ellis, owner of Ellis Vineyard." The crowd stirred, some leaning forward, others exchanging skeptical glances. "I was thrown out of my auction, humiliated, because some believed a black woman couldn't belong here." Her words cut deep, the truth ablaid. She saw Vivian's smile falter, Derek's face pale. "But I'm not here to beg for your respect. I'm here to show you the truth." She tapped her earpiece and Jamie's app projected files onto a massive screen behind her. Derek's email. "Who'd believe Ellis owns this place?" Followed by forged contracts, bank records, a web of money laundering tied to Vivian's winery. The ballroom gasped, a collective intake of breath. Maya's voice rose, unwavering. "My brother Marcus died saving me from traffickers. The police called it gang trouble because he was black. I built this vineyard for him, for every dream they tried to crush." Her eyes locked on Vivian, who stood frozen, her award clutched like a shield. "You thought you could erase me, steal my home. You're wrong." The screen flashed a recording, Vivian and Derek in the kitchen, plotting to bankrupt Maya. The crowd erupted, murmurs turning to outrage. Lila's live stream soared, 4 million viewers watching the truth unfold. Justice for the owner trended globally, a tidal wave of support. Vivian stepped forward, her voice shaking with false remorse. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, her smile brittle. "I'm sorry if feelings were hurt." The crowd wavered, some swayed by her polish. But Maya cut her off, her voice a whip. "Save your tears. The vines need more water." The line landed like a thunderclap, the room stunned by her audacity. Jamie grinned from the shadows, Lila's camera catching every second. Vivian's facade cracked, her eyes darting to security, but Maya's gaze held the room captive. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about every person told they don't belong, every dream dismissed for their skin." The crowd was hers now, their applause tentative but growing. Security moved toward Vivian, their loyalty shifting as the truth sank in. Derek tried to slip away, but Evan's camera tracked him, a silent promise of exposure. Maya stood tall, the emerald gown a symbol of her unbroken spirit. She saw Marcus's face, his sacrifice, the fire in her veins. She'd fought for this moment, not just to save her vineyard, but to rewrite a narrative that had tried to erase her. The gala, once a stage for her humiliation, was now her triumph. But the fight wasn't over. Vivian's conglomerate loomed, its shadows deep. Maya's eyes burned, her voice a vow. "This is my home," she said, "and I'm not done fighting." The Harvest Gala at Napa Valley's grandest hotel shimmered like a jewel in the night, its ballroom ablaze with crystal chandeliers and the clink of champagne flutes. The air buzzed with the chatter of America's elite, wine moguls, tech barons, and celebrities draped in silk and diamonds. Velvet curtains framed a stage where spotlights danced, and the scent of roses mingled with the heady aroma of rare vintages. But beneath the opulence, a current of tension crackled, as if the room sensed a storm about to break. Maya Ellis, 32, stood at the ballroom's edge, her emerald gown catching the light like a blade. Her braids were swept into an elegant updo, her eyes, sharp, unyielding, scanning the crowd. No longer the woman dragged through mud, she was a warrior, her heart a furnace of purpose. Tonight, she'd reclaim her vineyard, her dignity, and the legacy her brother Marcus had died for. The gala was Napa's crown jewel, a stage where power was flaunted and reputations forged. Vivian Cross, 50, the white wine titan whose cruelty had orchestrated Maya's humiliation, held court near the stage, her white gown gleaming like a predator's smile. Her laughter rang out, calculated and cold, as she accepted an award for industry excellence. The crowd applauded, their adoration a shield for her secrets, forged contracts, money laundering schemes, a plot to steal Maya's vineyard. Derek, 30, her CFO and betrayer, hovered nearby, his sharp suit hiding a nervous glance toward the shadows. Maya's gaze locked on them, her pulse steady but fierce. They thought they'd buried her in that muddy alley, erased her with lies. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jamie, 22, the black intern who'd stood by Maya through the storm, slipped through the crowd, his lanky frame in a borrowed tuxedo. His earnest eyes met hers, a silent nod of solidarity. "You got this, Miss Ellis," he whispered, handing her a microphone clipped to a discreet earpiece. His tech skills had polished the livestream app, now ready to broadcast Maya's truth to millions. Lila, 20, a black influencer with 1 million followers, stood by a velvet rope, her phone raised, live streaming to her audience. "Napa's about to get real," she teased, her voice a spark igniting the digital world. Justice for the owner trended, a wildfire of support clashing with Vivian's trolls. Maya's chest tightened, gratitude mingling with resolve. These young allies, forged in shared battles, were her army. Evan, 30, the white journalist who'd filmed her humiliation, lingered near the stage, his press credentials securing Maya's slot. His camera bag held the USB drive, proof of Vivian's crimes now synced with Maya's app. The files, Derek's emails, offshore accounts, forged debts, were a guillotine waiting to fall. But the risk was immense. Vivian's conglomerate had eyes everywhere. Their SUV chase a warning still fresh in Maya's mind. She adjusted her earpiece, Jamie's voice crackling through. "App's live. You're good to go." She nodded, her emerald gown shimmering as she stepped toward the stage, the crowd parting like a sea before a storm. Whispers followed, some curious, others laced with disdain. "Isn't that the woman from the auction?" The racism was subtle, a shadow in their eyes echoing the pavilion's sneers. Maya ascended the stage, the spotlight hot on her skin, the room falling silent. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steel as she began. "My name is Maya Ellis, owner of Ellis Vineyard." The crowd stirred, some leaning forward, others exchanging skeptical glances. "I was thrown out of my auction, humiliated, because some believed a black woman couldn't belong here." Her words cut deep, the truth a blade. She saw Vivian's smile falter, Derek's face pale. "But I'm not here to beg for your respect. I'm here to show you the truth." She tapped her earpiece, and Jamie's app projected files onto a massive screen behind her. Derek's email. "Who'd believe Ellis owns this place?" Followed by forged contracts, bank records, a web of money laundering tied to Vivian's winery. The ballroom gasped, a collective intake of breath. Maya's voice rose, unwavering. "My brother Marcus died saving me from traffickers. The police called it gang trouble because he was black. I built this vineyard for him, for every dream they tried to crush." Her eyes locked on Vivian, who stood frozen, her award clutched like a shield. "You thought you could erase me, steal my home. You're wrong. The screen flashed a recording, Vivian and Derek in the kitchen, plotting to bankrupt Maya. The crowd erupted, murmurs turning to outrage. Lila's live stream soared, 4 million viewers watching the truth unfold. Your justice for the owner trended globally, a tidal wave of support. Vivian stepped forward, her voice shaking with false remorse. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, her smile brittle. "I'm sorry if feelings were hurt." The crowd wavered, some swayed by her polish. But Maya cut her off, her voice a whip. "Save your tears. The vines need more water." The line landed like a thunderclap, the room stunned by her audacity. Jamie grinned from the shadows, Lila's camera catching every second. Vivian's facade cracked, her eyes darting to security, but Maya's gaze held the room captive. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about every person told they don't belong, every dream dismissed for their skin." The crowd was hers now, their applause tentative but growing. Security moved toward Vivian, their loyalty shifting as the truth sank in. Derek tried to slip away, but Evan's camera tracked him, a silent promise of exposure. Maya stood tall, the emerald gown a symbol of her unbroken spirit. She saw Marcus's face, his sacrifice, the fire in her veins. She'd fought for this moment, not just to save her vineyard, but to rewrite a narrative that had tried to erase her. The gala, once a stage for her humiliation, was now her triumph. But the fight wasn't over. Vivian's conglomerate loomed, its shadows deep. Maya's eyes burned, her voice a vow. "This is my home," she said, "and I'm not done fighting." The Ellis vineyard basked in the glow of dawn, its rows of grapevines stretching toward a Napa Valley sky streaked with pink and gold. The air was crisp, carrying the sweet tang of ripening fruit and the hum of a community reborn. Lanterns strung between ancient oaks cast a warm light over a bustling harvest festival, where tables groaned under platters of local cheeses, freshly baked bread, and bottles of Ellis wine, their ruby hues catching the morning sun. Laughter mingled with the strum of a guitarist, children darted through the crowd, and locals, winemakers, farmers, families, gathered to celebrate not just a season, but a triumph. Maya Ellis, 32, stood at the festival's heart, her simple blouse and jeans a quiet contrast to the emerald gown of the gala night. Her braids framed a face radiant with pride, her eyes, once shadowed by pain, now alight with purpose. This was her home, her victory, her legacy. The gala's seismic revelations had reshaped Napa. Vivian Cross, the white wine mogul whose polished venom had nearly destroyed Maya, was gone, her empire crumbling under federal scrutiny. Investigations into her money laundering scheme, exposed by Maya's livestream, had stripped her of power, her name now a cautionary tale whispered in Napa's elite circles. Derek, Maya's treacherous CFO, had been arrested, his forged contracts and betrayals laid bare for the world to see. The crowd at the gala, once complicit in Maya's humiliation, had turned, their applause a reluctant acknowledgement of her truth. Lila's livestream, viewed by millions, had cemented to us justice for the owner as a rallying cry, a testament to Maya's resilience. Yet the victory was bittersweet, its cost etched in the scars she carried, her brother Marcus's sacrifice, her daughter Zoe's pain, the loyalty of allies who'd risked everything. Maya moved through the festival, her steps light but deliberate, greeting guests with a warmth that belied her battles. The vineyard, once a stage for her ejection, was now a sanctuary, its vines a symbol of her defiance. She paused by a table where Jamie, 22, the black intern who'd stood by her in the storm, poured wine for a group of locals. His lanky frame filled out a vineyard polo, his earnest smile masking the weight of his suspension, now lifted with a promotion to tech lead. "Ms. Ellis," he said, catching her eye, "this place is alive again." Maya nodded, her heart swelling. Jamie's loyalty, forged in shared wounds, his mother's struggles, his run-ins with prejudice, had been her anchor. "You made it happen too," she said, her voice steady. His grin was a spark, a reminder of the future they were building. Nearby, Jada, 20, the Latina server who'd slipped Maya the note, laughed with a group of festival goers. Reinstated as a vineyard manager, her fierce eyes shone with pride. Her firing, a cruel frame-up by Vivian, now a badge of courage. Jada's risk had cost her job, her stability, but she'd stood firm, her faith in Maya unyielding. "We did it," Jada said, joining Maya, her voice thick with emotion. Maya squeezed her hand, gratitude a silent bond. They'd been dismissed, erased, but together they'd rewritten Napa's story. The festival wasn't just a celebration, it was a declaration. This vineyard, this legacy, belonged to those who fought for it. Zoe, 8, darted through the crowd, her braids adorned with beads that clinked as she ran. Her laughter was a melody, her innocence restored after the gala's triumph. But Maya saw the shadow in her daughter's eyes, the memory of cruel comments. That family doesn't belong in Napa. The racism, subtle but sharp, had wounded Zoe, echoing the pavilion's sneers. The article calling Maya's success a delusion. Maya had fought for her daughter, for a world where Zoe could dream without fear. She knelt as Zoe ran to her, wrapping her in a hug. "You're my hero, Mom," Zoe whispered, her small voice fierce. Maya's throat tightened, Marcus's face flashing in her mind. His shout, "Run, Maya!" She hadn't run. She'd built this for Zoe, for Marcus, for every dream crushed by prejudice. The festival's centerpiece was a small stage, where Maya would soon speak. A banner above read, "Marcus Ellis Scholarship Fund," a tribute to her brother, offering tech education to survivors of trafficking and systemic bias. The idea had come from Zoe, her young heart determined to honor her uncle. Maya's chest ached with pride, but also with the weight of her past. Marcus's death, dismissed as gang trouble by police because he was black, had driven her to code, to build, to fight. She'd faced investors who'd smirked. "You don't look like a CEO," and Napa's elite who'd laughed as she was dragged away. Each slight, each erasure had fueled her, but the cost was heavy. Nights haunted by Marcus's voice, Zoe's tears, the risks borne by Jamie and Jada. Evan, 30, the white journalist who'd amplified her truth, approached, his camera bag slung over his shoulder. His article, "The Woman Who Rewrote Napa," had gone viral, its words a testament to Maya's strength. "They're calling you a legend," he said, his smile wry but warm. Maya shook her head, her voice soft. "I'm just a woman who didn't quit." Evan's footage, paired with the USB drive, had sealed Vivian's fate, but his quiet support had given Maya a voice when hers was stolen. She thanked him, her eyes meeting his, a silent acknowledgement of their shared fight. As the guitarist struck a final chord, the crowd gathered before the stage. Maya ascended, her presence commanding, her blouse a symbol of the woman beneath the gala's glamour. The vineyard stretched behind her, its vines a tapestry of her resilience. She took the microphone, her voice clear, resonant. "This vineyard is more than wine," she said, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "It's a promise, to my brother Marcus, to my daughter Zoe, to every person told they don't belong." The crowd was silent, captivated. They tried to erase us, to steal our dreams because of our skin. We didn't let them. Applause erupted, a wave of respect replacing the pavilion's laughter. Maya's eyes found Zoe, Jamie, and Jada in the crowd, their faces alight with pride. "The Marcus Ellis Scholarship will lift others," she continued, her voice thick with emotion, "because no one's dream should die in the dark." The crowd cheered, their voices a chorus of renewal. Maya saw Marcus's smile, his sacrifice, the fire in her soul. She'd fought not just for her vineyard, but for a legacy that would outlast her, a beacon for those who dared to rise. The festival continued, but Maya slipped away, walking the vineyard's rows with Zoe, Jamie, and Jada. Dawn's light bathed the vines, their leaves whispering of growth, of hope. Maya touched a grape cluster, its weight a testament to her labor. "We changed Napa," she said, her voice soft but fierce, "and sparked a dream." Zoe squeezed her hand, Jamie and Jada nodding, their bond unbreakable. The vineyard was theirs, not just a place, but a proof of their strength. Maya looked to the horizon, Marcus's voice a gentle echo. "Keep going, Maya." She would, for her daughter, her allies, her brother's memory. The world hadn't broken her, it had forged her, and her legacy would endure. As the sun rises over Ellis Vineyard, one woman's fight against injustice becomes a beacon for us all. Her journey from pain to triumph, from erasure to legacy, shows that strength can rewrite any story. What did this tale stir in you? Did it spark hope, anger, or inspiration? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear how her courage resonates with you. Where are you watching from? Your voice matters, just as hers did. Thank you for joining us on this journey, for standing with her through every storm. Your support keeps these stories alive, proving that truth can break through the darkest nights. Subscribe now to catch our next tale of resilience, and we'll meet you back here, under Napa's vines for more stories that ignite the heart. Until then, keep fighting for your dreams.